Good evening, everyone. Here are the group 2 will be continue to represent for our topic in our midterm right now. So we have the topic we will represent right now is all about the site of the first mass and Cavite Mutiny. So first we have introduction. The earliest recorded mass in the Philippine territory was held on March 31, 1521 in the island of Mazoa, as referred to in the journals of Antonio Pigafetta, and known today as Limawasa Island, Leyte. It was on Easter Sunday and was presided by Ferdinand Pedro de Valderrama, champlain of the Magellan-Elcano expedition. Two native chieftains were in the attendance, the Raja of Mazawa and the Raja of Butuan. After the mass, the crowd went up a little hill and planted a wooden cross upon its summit. And also, the National Historical Commission of the Philippines affirms in Limawasa Island as a site of the first Catholic Mass in the country. The Limawasa was marked the birth of Roman Catholicism, which remained as the nation-dominant religion in the country up to the present.
There are two primary sources that historians refer to identify the site of the first mass in the country. We have Francisco Albo's log and Antonio Pigafetta's account, who are eyewitnesses of Magellan's voyage. Antonio Pigafetta. It is around 1491 when he was born in Vicenza, Republic of Venice, or known now as Italy, and he died at the age of 39 or 40 around 1531. Antonio Pigafetta studied astronomy, geography, and cartography. He is an Italian scholar and explorer from Republic of Venice, and he learned with the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew on the first voyage around the world.
Francisco Albo was born in Italy in 1875. He is a boatswain and navigator from the island of Rhodes in southern Aegean Island. He joined the Magellan expedition as a pilot of the Magellan flagship, which is Trinidad. He began keeping his own diary, merely a logbook on the voyage out while they were sailing. He was one of the 18 survivors who returned to Sebastian Elcano on the Victoria after having circumnavigated the world. His intention was to keep the logbook of the voyage that provides data for the actual course sailed by the vessel and turns out as the basis of where did the first mass of the Philippines was held.
Based from Historia del Nuevo Mundo by Juan Bautista Muñoz that was published in 1793. Album's logbook was written during their expedition on their first circumnavigation of the earth in the year around 1519 to 1522. The source was a derrotero or logbooks of the voyage of Fernando Magellan's in the search of the strait from the Cape of St. Augustine. This edition was published in 1793 by Bibda de Ibarra in Madrid, approximately 12,167 kilometers away from Leyte. The original journal from Magellan Voyage was published or created around 1525, with its nature of or description of ca. 19th century red goat skin, gold tone, bound by Duro in 1651. It was made by written by Pigafetta Antonio with a resource type of archives or manuscript and start produced in France that approximately 11,499 kilometers away from Leyte.
The historical source that was authored by Blair Emma Helen was written in the year 1933, titled The Philippine Island, 1493 to 1833, exploration by early navigators, descriptions of the islands and their peoples. There are history and records of the Catholic missions, as related in the contemporaneous books and manuscripts, showing the political, economical, commercial, and religious conditions of those islands from their earlier relations with European nations to the beginning of the 19th century. Then, translated in English and published by Robertson James Alexander in the Cleveland, Ohio, approximately 13,548 kilometers away from Leyte. The discovery of the Pigafetta's account and Albus logbook are the reason of the shift of opinion from Masao to Limasawa.
The most complete and reliable account of the Magellan expedition into Philippine shore in 1521 is that Antonio Pigafetta, which is deemed as the only credible primary source of report on the celebration of the first Christian Mass on Philippine soil. James Robertson's English translation of the Philippine-Italian manuscript of Pigafetta's account is most reliable for being faithful to the original text as duly certified by the University of the Philippines Department of European Language.
Pigafetta's Mazawa, the site of the first Christian Mass held on Philippine soil, is an island lying off the southwestern tip of Leyte. Based on Albus logbook, Mazawa lies at latitude of 9 2/3 degrees north. The latitude corresponds and fit to the position and latitude of the island of Limasawa, whose southern tip lies at 9 degrees and 54 minutes north. The measurement of distances between Homonhon and Limasawa and between Limasawa and Cebu as computed by the Pro-Limasawa group matches or approximates the delineations made by Pigafetta of the distances between Homonhon and Mazawa and between Mazawa and Cebu. According to Albu, as they reach the top, the natives point out 3 islands in WSW direction where there is much resources. The said 3 islands are believed to be those Camiguin, Bohol, and Surigao area of Mindanao.
Ferdinand Magellan anchored off the eastern shore of a small island called Mazawa. In that island, they stayed 7 days, which on Easter Sunday they celebrated Mass and planted the cross on the summit of the highest hill. The presence of 2 native kings in Mazawa. The king of Butuan is a visitor in the island of Mazawa. Magellan's fleet took a route from Homonhon to Mazawa and from Mazawa to Cebu that did not at any time touch Butuan or any other part of Mindanao. The survivors of the expedition did go to the Mindanao later, but after Magellan's death.
Jesus Priest, Miguel A. Bernard, in his work Butuan or Limasawa, the site of the first Mass in the Philippines, a re-examination of evidence, 1981, lays down the argument that in Pigafetta account, a crucial aspect of Butuan was not mentioned. Butuan is not an island, but a barangay of Butuan City located in delta of Agusan River alongside the coast of northern Mindanao. Pilots of Legazpi expedition understood that Milasawa was not an island near Leyte and Penon. Butuan was on the island of Mindanao. The two were different places, in no wise identical.
Jaime de Vera stated that the first Mass was celebrated in Limasawa, not in Butuan. Also, historian Pablo Castel stating with a footnote to Francisco Colin's Labor Evangelica that Magellan did not go to Butuan but from Limasawa to Cebu. The issue of the exact location of the historic mass was early resolved by the NHI, the forerunner of the NHCP, through two panels of experts, the first led by former Supreme Court Justice Emilio Gansaico in 1995, and the second by historian Benito Ligarda in 2008. Both panels ruled that the site of the 1521 Easter Sunday Mass was Limasawa Island.
In conclusion, we affirm that Limasawa is a site of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines. Based on the evidence of Albus Logbook, Pigafetta's testimony regarding to the route, the evidence of Pigafetta's map, the two native kings, the 7 days of Misawa, along with the two evidence as the confirmatory evidence from Legazpi expedition, Cavite Mutiny, Cavite Province. Cavite got its name from the Tagalog word kawit, such as hook, owing to the hook shape on the land on the old Spanish map. The land was formerly known as Tangway, where Spanish authorities constructed a fort from of the city of Cavite rose. It is named as the historical capital of the Philippines. It is the cradle of the Philippine Revolution and the birthplace of the Philippine independence. The Cavite Mutiny. In February 17, 1872, in the cold gray dawn, the people started to gather on the grassy field of Bagumbayan, also known these days as Rizal Park and South Intramuros. At first, they most likely of Spanish soldiers and the Guardia Civil in their fine uniforms and office holders and letrados in suit, returned friars which their sacristans and principalia in short black jacket worn over untucked baru. They were in a festive mood, for they had to come for a witness as a public execution, always in a fiesta in the Spanish establishment. In addition, a Cavite mutiny brief uprising 200 Filipinos troops and workers in the Cavite Arsenal, which became the excuse of Spanish repression to the embryonic Filipino nationalist movement. Ironically, the harsh reaction of the Spanish authorities serves ultimately to promote the nationalist cause.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zaira Pantolita, and my topic is the Cavite Mutiny. The three priests in black Cossacks, bound and monocled, escorted by Spanish friars, guards, and drummers, appeared at the gate in the walled city. They were the condemned men, Father Burgos, Gomez, and Zamora, who had been sentenced to death for sedition against the Spanish crown and were to be executed by garrote, the most dreaded form of execution. So the mutiny was quickly crushed by the Spanish under the reactionary governor Rafael de Izquierdo, magnified the incidents and used it as an excuse to clamp down on those Filipinos who had been calling for governmental reform. Mutiny was regarded as a most serious offense.
Importance of Cavite Mutiny in Philippine history. Many believe that the Cavite Mutiny of 1872 was the beginning of Filipino nationalism that would eventually lead to the Philippine Revolution of 1896. Cavite Mutiny. January 20, 1872, brief uprising of 200 Filipino troops and workers at the Cavite Arsenal, which became the excuse for Spanish repression of the embryonic Philippine nationalist movement. Ironically, the harsh reaction of the Spanish authorities served ultimately to promote the nationalist cause. If we had any historical sense, the remembrance of the 7th of February of 1872 would be as big a fiesta as Rizal Day. Burgos, Gomez, and Zamora were the voices crying the generation and all the others who came after them. They were the precursors of the Filipino nation. In the cold gray dawn of the 17th of February 1872, people started to gather on the grassy field of Agumbayan. They called us now Rizal Park, south of Intramuros.
Father Jose Burgos, 35, a handsome Creole, born in Vigan of Spanish parents, ascended last. He was the recognized leader of the secularization faction and had written vehement and eloquent manifestos. His being a full-blooded Spaniard made it plain that the fight was between the natives born on Philippine soil and the Peninsulares born on the Spanish Peninsula. Burgos had called his faction Hijos del País, the original concept which decades later became Bonifacio's Anak ng Bayan.